Chapter 7. The Training of Wisdom. Neither Sila nor Samadhi is unique to the teaching of the Buddha. Both were well known and practiced before his enlightenment. In fact, while searching for the way to liberation, the future Buddha was trained in Samadhi by two teachers with whom he studied. In prescribing these trainings, the Buddha did not differ from the teachers of conventional religion. All religions insist on the necessity of moral behavior, and they also offer the possibility of attaining states of bliss, whether by prayer, by rituals, by fasting and other austerities, or by various forms of meditation. The goal of such practices is simply a state of deep mental absorption. This is the ecstasy experienced by religious mystics. Such concentration, even if not developed to the level of the trance states, is very helpful. It calms the mind by diverting attention from the situations in which one would otherwise react with craving and aversion. Counting slowly to 10 to prevent an outburst of anger is a rudimentary form of samadhi. Other, perhaps more obvious forms, are repetition of a word or mantra, or concentration on a visual object. They all work. When the attention is diverted to a different object, the mind appears to become calm and peaceful. The calm achieved in this way, however, is not real liberation. Certainly the practice of concentration confers great benefits, but it works only at the conscious level of the mind. Nearly 25 centuries before the invention of modern psychology, the Buddha realized the existence of the unconscious mind, which he called the anusaya. Diverting the attention, he found, is a way to deal effectively with craving and aversion at the conscious level, but it does not actually eliminate them. Instead, it pushes them deep into the unconscious, where they remain as dangerous as ever, even though dormant. At the surface level of the mind, there may be a layer of peace and harmony, but in the depths is a sleeping volcano of suppressed negativity, which sooner or later will erupt violently. The Buddha said, "If the roots remain untouched and firm in the ground, a felled tree still puts forth new shoots. If the underlying habit of craving and aversion is not uprooted, suffering arises anew, over and over again." So long as conditioning remains in the unconscious mind, it will put forth fresh shoots at the first opportunity, causing suffering. For this reason, even after reaching the highest states attainable by the practice of concentration, the future Buddha was not satisfied that he had achieved liberation. He decided that he must continue his search for the way out of suffering and the path to happiness. He saw two choices. The first is the path of self-indulgence, of giving oneself free license to seek the satisfaction of all one's desires. This is the worldly path which most people follow, whether they realize it or not. But he saw clearly that it cannot lead to happiness. There is no one in the universe whose desires are always fulfilled, in whose life everything that is wished for happens, and nothing happens that is not wished. People who follow this path inevitably suffer when they fail to achieve their desires. That is, they suffer disappointment and dissatisfaction. But they suffer equally when they attain their desires. They suffer from the fear that the desired object will vanish, that the moment of gratification will prove transitory, as in fact it must. In seeking, in attaining, and in missing their desires, such people always remain agitated. The future Buddha had experienced this path himself before leaving worldly life to become a recluse, and therefore he knew that it cannot be the way to peace. The alternative is the path of self-restraint, of deliberately refraining from satisfying one's desires. In India 2,500 years ago, this path of self-denial was taken to the extreme of avoiding all pleasurable experiences and inflicting on oneself unpleasurable ones. The rationale for this self-punishment was that it would cure the habit of craving and aversion, and thereby purify the mind. The practice of such austerities is a phenomenon of religious life throughout the world. The future Buddha had experienced this path as well in the years following his adoption of the homeless life. He had tried different ascetic practices to the point that his body was reduced to skin and bones, but still he found that he was not liberated. Punishing the body does not purify the mind. Self-restraint need not be carried to such an extreme, however. One may practice it in more moderate form by abstaining from gratifying those desires that would involve unwholesome actions. This kind of self-control seems far preferable to self-indulgence, since in practicing it one would at least avoid immoral actions. But if self-restraint is achieved only by self-repression, it will increase the mental tensions to a dangerous degree. All the suppressed desires will accumulate like floodwater behind the dam of self-denial. One day the dam is bound to break and release a destructive flood. So long as conditioning remains in the mind, we cannot be secure or at peace. Sila, beneficial though it is, cannot be maintained by sheer force of will. Developing samadhi will help, but this is only a partial solution that will not work at the depths of the mind, where the roots of the problem lie, the roots of the impurities. So long as these roots remain buried in the unconscious, there can be no real lasting happiness, no liberation. But if the roots of conditioning themselves can be removed from the mind, then there will be no danger of indulgence in unwholesome actions, no necessity for self-repression, because the very impulse for performing unwholesome action will be gone. Freed of the tensions either of seeking or denying, one can live at peace. To remove the roots, a method is required with which we can penetrate to the depths of the mind in order to deal with the impurities where they begin. This method is what the Buddha found, the training of wisdom, or panya, which led him to enlightenment. It is also called vipassana bhavana, the development of insight into one's own nature, insight by means of which one may recognize and eliminate the causes of suffering. This was the discovery of the Buddha, what he practiced for his own liberation, and what he taught others throughout his life. This is the unique element in his teachings, to which he gave the highest importance. He repeatedly said, "If it is supported by morality, concentration is very fruitful, very beneficial. If it is supported by concentration, wisdom is very fruitful, very beneficial. If it is supported by wisdom, the mind becomes freed of all defilements." In themselves, morality and concentration, sila and samadhi, are valuable, but their real purpose is to lead to wisdom. It is only in developing panya that we find a true middle path between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-repression. By practicing morality, we avoid actions that cause the grossest forms of mental agitation. By concentrating the mind, we further calm it, and at the same time shape it into an effective tool